I Should Be Writing, Season 20, Episode 25.
But I should be writing. I should be working on my craft. I should be writing. I should be submitting my next draft. But I'm sitting home watching Doctor Who.
Hi there. Welcome to I Should Be Writing. This is a podcast for wannabe fiction writers, and I am your host, Mur Lafferty. And today is going to be a little bit different because I did two interviews at Worldcon, and they don't have our normal go in and go out. So I'm recording this, not streaming it. I'm just here in the room recording with you guys. And then we'll have the interview. Actually, we might do both. Why not? Let's do both. I have to apologize. The audio was not great. And I'm so sorry to Wole Talabi and Sung-Il Kim. I'm sorry. If you want to hear the funny thing, I thought my digital recorder was going poorly. And I bought a new one. And then I tried to use the new one and that one wouldn't work either. And then I realized the problem was with my microphone. So yeah, bought a new device for no reason. It's like, did you plug your computer in? Is that why it's not running? Maybe. Those of you who are paying attention may note that this is over a month late. I took some time off and I didn't announce it, but that's pretty standard for me. I'm sorry, but it is. Because when I came back from Worldcon, I had a little bit of time to work on my book, and then I went to Bubanicon, and then I came home and had to pour all of my energy into finishing the rewrite for Infinite Archive. And I got it done and I got it turned in, but that has been my main focus completely. I even had a book come out. The Ophelia Network is available in print and ebook now. It was an Audible original, and now it's out on the shelves. It is a novella. It's short. It is Blue's Clues meets 1984. But that's what I've been up to, writing and writing and writing, and then recovering and recovering and recovering. But now I'm here. I have a ton of audio to produce. And this is our first one. I really like Wole Talabi. I just think he's very cool. And I was delighted when we were actually going to be in the same place at Worldcon that I could get a chance to sit down with him again. So we talk about his projects. We also talk about attending conventions. If you remember, Wole is the author of Shigidi and the Brass Head of Obalufon, which has been nominated for a whole bunch of awards. And his short story collection, Convergence Problems, is out. And then he's also one of the creators behind the Mothersound Sauútiverse Anthology. And we'll talk about that a little bit. So again, I apologize for the quality of the audio. I now have new microphones. You may hear it. I'm actually pretty pleased with these. And we'll get going. Okay. All right. We're recording now. I haven't done interviews like this in a Worldcon in a long time. So right. I'm excited to talk to you again, finally in person.
Yes, first time.
Something got loud again. I'm with Wole Talabi.
Talabi, yes.
Talabi. And for the first time ever, you are one of the more commented on interviews in I Should Be Writing fandom.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You really just made a big impact on people. So I wanted to have a chance to talk to you again in person and just say hi. And I think it was your confidence. And you've got the confidence without being a jerk, and you wear it like, well, yes, everyone should if they're here. But no, you are rare in the fact that you have that. But going back a little bit, how is your Worldcon?
First of all, thank you, and thank you to everybody that commented because I did not know that, so that's cool. Worldcon has been interesting. Slightly overwhelming. Mm-hmm. There's a lot going on. We were just talking about that. And all of it is interesting, I think. It's been interesting so far, being on panels, meeting fans, talking to people. I still find it weird when people walk up to me and say, "Hi, I loved your story or your book," which just happened before we started this interview.
It just happened.
And it never stops being weird, but I enjoy it. I like it. It's a good thing to have impacted people because I know how much other people's work impacted me, right? And in fact, yesterday I had the honor of interviewing one of the guests of honor, right? Nnedi Okorafor.
Yes.
And I got to be able to tell her, like, no, her work has impacted me and influenced me. So it's a thing that we're all fans and creators at the same time, and there's this whole ecosystem. And it feels like Worldcon is like the center, it's like the petri dish that you grow the ecosystem from. So it's nice to be in it, technically for more or less the first time, right? Because this is only the second Worldcon I've been to. The first one was in Chengdu, which was, I won't say an anomaly, but it was different, right? Because I was an invited guest. They were trying to make an impression, so things were done, from what I've heard, quite differently from other Worldcons. So technically, this is kind of the first traditional or typical Worldcon that I've been to, and yeah, I'm enjoying it a lot.
That's great. So, do you go to many cons at all? So this, not only is it a Worldcon overwhelming, it's just convention stuff. What have you learned so far that you would tell people who haven't been to cons yet, whether they're published or not?
Oh, right. I would say prepare to have luggage space so you can take things with you because there's so much cool stuff around, especially books. Because I love books, but I'm having to say, nope, can't buy that one. Nope, can't take that one. Don't have enough luggage to take that back. But just in terms of actually enjoying the con, I think do a bit of planning, but not too much, right? I think I've seen people do it different ways where they have the entire con planned down to the half hour.
Wow.
It's like 8 a.m. here, 8:30 here, 9 a.m. here, and it becomes stress because you're trying to get to everything. And I think that's too much. I think it's probably a better approach is kind of what me and my wife have done so far is pick a few highlights. Like these are a few things that we definitely want to try to get to, and then have more like a second tier system. Like if we can, we would like to go to these other things, and then everything else is free flowing, free form. Move around the con, be ready to be surprised, allow yourself to be surprised, get ready to run into random people and have great conversations, and just have a bit of a plan but not too much, and then just enjoy it, right? So I would say that's probably the best way. Don't get stuck into trying to optimize the con, I think, which a few people have told me they were trying to do, and I've seen them and I'm like, you seem a bit stressed, right? I don't think cons should be fun. If you're not having fun, why are you doing it? You know? So that's probably my little bit of advice.
I think a lot of people, I mean, I've given advice that they should go to cons to meet people, and for a lot of people that in itself is stressful. But while I still think you should do that, also allowing yourself to just wander around and enjoy yourself is a paramount, because if you are stressing yourself out for meeting people and for scheduling yourself, you're just not going to have fun.
And the other thing I would add is not even advice. This is not advice for people just coming to a con. I'd say this is probably more advice for people that have come before, that are coming with someone for the first time. Probably the best thing you can do is help connect circles of people. So many people, like you said, they are stressed out about meeting people that perhaps they've only heard of before, they're familiar with only a name, or they've only engaged with online, and that can be a bit nerve-wracking. But if someone introduces you, that is helpful, and I feel like not enough people are doing that, because some people come to cons regularly and they know a few people, so they get stuck talking to the same circles of people.
Because it's comfortable.
It's comfortable. Invite someone in. Anyone. I've been, everywhere I've gone, people I met in Chengdu, like we just met Kevin, and I try to introduce whoever I'm with, introduce to someone I've met before. And that's a new connection, and I think that's how the community grows. You build new connections, because now they know each other, and maybe at the next con they meet, they will introduce someone else, and everybody builds this bigger, wider network and makes it more comfortable, more welcoming, for everyone in fandom, right?
Yes.
Whether they came on their own, whether they came with one or two friends, they should leave with more friends than they came with. I think that's what makes a good con. Leave with more connections than you came with.
I like it.
Yeah.
So I overheard when you were talking to your super fan who stopped by, that your shared world is actually, there's something to buy in the dealer room?
Yes,
I did
correct.
not realize you'd gone that far with it.
Yes, yeah, we have an anthology out that came out from Android Press towards the end of last year. It was crowdfunded. Very grateful to everybody that supported that. And now it's available in different bookstores, and we were very lucky that Waterstones in the UK got a couple of copies in. So yeah, anyone around at the con can pick them up there, or hopefully if they have more copies, anyone around in Scotland can pop into Waterstones in Glasgow and grab a few copies. But yeah, it's going quite well. That's the first anthology, Mothersound, the Sauútiverse Anthology. We have another one in the works that should be coming out hopefully in the next year or two, once all the publishing arrangements are sorted out.
Right.
And that one is even bigger, and I would dare say better. I'm not the one editing it, which might explain why it's better. Eugene Bacon, Stephen Embleton, and Cheryl Ntumi are editing together, and we have more contributors, including the core community that created the Sauútiverse, right? The original Sauti collective. Most of us have stories in there, but there's just as many stories from external contributors, which again, we're growing. That was always the intention. Build this shared world with the collective. We build it together, and then we invite other people in. Let them also write in the shared world, kind of enjoy the space that we've created, fellowship and network with us in a creative enterprise. That's happening, that's going forward. And the aim is for that to just keep going and growing, right? And it seems to be working quite well. So yeah, even if the growth might be a bit slow, but it's growing. And to me, that's a good thing.
That's great. I think you might want it slow, as long as it's actually
slow
growing,
and steady.
It would be, overwhelming probably. So if you can say so without actually naming any person that was a problem, what, in such a big collaborative effort, what problems did you come up against?
Just the usual people working together kinds of problems, which is differences of opinion, differences in understanding of the thing that we're trying to build together, and sometimes impatience, and almost, I would call it like a misalignment, almost like an emotional misalignment, which is what can happen sometimes when people are working on something together, but perhaps someone comes in and they've had a bit of a bad day, and someone else is really excited about something, and you're trying to work on it together. That kind of emotional misalignment can lead to arguments, because someone might perceive, the person that's being enthusiastic as imposing on them, and because they've had a bit of a bad day, they're a bit cranky and they get upset quickly or sensitive. So all of that takes a bit of management, right? Just to ensure that everybody remains on an even keel and keeps the main point in mind, which is that we all want the best for this world. We all want the most interesting idea, the most interesting story, and no one is trying to put anyone else down. We are trying to uplift ourselves together at the same time, and maybe we're coming at it from different angles. So for these kinds of things, it always helps to have one or two or as many as needed facilitators, right? The kind of people that are even-keeled in temperament most of the time, that can kind of take ego out of it and recognize what is happening when an argument is heating up a little bit, and find the best way to get everybody to come back to center and say, we all want the same thing. Okay, here's what you're saying. Here's what this person is hearing. Let's take a break, come back to the center and say, how do we make it work together, right?
Feels like classic...
classic people management, almost, project management. And in the early days, because I kind of convened the Sauti collective, I invited people to come in. So I was taking that role quite a lot. It also helps that in my day job I've been a team manager before, so I do know how to manage people. I've been a project manager, so I know how to keep a team aligned to get to an objective on time and on budget. I don't like doing it, but I know how. So I had to use a lot of those skills. And I think what has happened is, because some people in the team also have those skills, and also other people in the team saw me practicing those skills, they've kind of carried forward the same methodology going forward, which is why I love that this new anthology is being edited by a different group of people, but they're working together. They have 3 editors working together, and I would dare say they've done better than what I did on my own. They worked very well together. They managed bringing in more collaborators, new collaborators, different emotional temperaments. We did have a few people that were invited that agreed to write stories set in this shared world and eventually didn't make it, either because they couldn't meet a deadline or perhaps they couldn't follow the feedback that they were getting. So there's definitely room for improvement in the way we bring new people in the way we onboard them with our process, because it's a very collaborative process, but I feel like a lot of writers have never worked collaboratively before.
Yeah, many haven't.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if it's the first time, especially for people a bit earlier in their career, getting feedback from 12 people can be overwhelming. And I think that happened once with 1 or 2 people, and eventually they never finished the story because perhaps overload.
Yeah.
So it's more of that same skill of recognizing the different ways people come into the collective and kind of tailoring the way we work to fit everyone. But mostly it's worked well. Like I said, we only had one or two dropouts. So I would say out of maybe 20 to 30 people, I need to check the exact list. But yeah, no, overall it's worked more than it hasn't, which to me is always a good thing.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing is ever perfect, but yeah, it's working more than it's not.
Do you have anybody on your team who is like the story Bible keeper, or like in charge of somebody says, I want to do this thing with this God, and someone's like, no, that can't happen because of something in my story? What do you do when you get those? Do you have one person who is the arbiter?
No, so we again, everything's collaborative with the collective. There are several of us that are kind of managing the story Bible. The last update we did, 3 of us worked on it together. And the approach we've taken is not to say, we kind of say we have this framework of a shared world, but we don't have rules. So the approach is usually not to say you can't do this because it violates something else, but rather we say bring your idea and we'll see how it can fit. Right? So it's more of it's the same challenge, but we try to take it from a positive standpoint instead of if you do something that violates the world, it's a problem. We say do whatever you want and we'll see how much of it we can fit, which is a more welcoming approach to the shared world, I think. So it allows people to be creative. And then we try to be flexible in the framework to say, okay, yes, it kind of contradicts something, but what if it was, set in a different part of the timeline, right? Because we have a broad history for this shared world. So something that you're doing might contradict something in this time period, but if you change it so that the story takes place 50 or 100 years before, it works fine. Now it becomes maybe it even becomes a more interesting story setup, because now someone can explore how did we get from a point where this thing was happening to where something that contradicts it is happening. And that could be a way the culture evolved. It could be another event that took place that led to that change. And that's a new story idea. And that's kind of what we've been seeing. So we've been more welcoming than saying, no, you can't do this, no, you can't do that. There's only a very few instances where we've had to say, okay, that absolutely contradicts everything in the story Bible and you have to change it, take it out. It's rare. And we don't really have, we don't have one person doing all this. There's kind of been 3 of us, or maybe even 4 now, because I was the first editor, so I'm usually involved in those discussions. And with the three new people, Eugen, Stephen, and Cheryl, they've also been heavily involved. Even before they were editing this next anthology, they were also involved in updating the story Bible and in discussing, consistencies and things like that. So everything is very collaborative. Everything has been very collaborative so far, and I think that's what makes it work best, is we usually have at least two people in the collective willing to work on any one thing, which means it's very much a collective, it's very much collaborative. There is no, this is one person doing one thing in the collective at all. So yeah, I'm enjoying this process of having an entire collective working on this one thing together and working towards the same objective.
Cool. What's next for you and the collective?
So for the collective, I already mentioned we have another anthology coming out.
When do you expect to, are you going to be Kickstartering that? Crowdfunding?
We don't know. So some stuff has been announced about it, if people want to look it up. We have an agent who is trying to sell the anthology to publishers. So we'll see which publisher it goes to and what kind of model that they want to use to finance it. That's entirely up to them. But from our point of view, a lot of the creative work is already done.
I see.
As I mentioned, this one's going to be bigger, more contributors, more, I would say, at least for US readership, more familiar names, more art, more poetry, just a lot more, right, for that. So that's what's next for the collective. We do have members of the collective also writing their own individual works set in this shared world.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, right here at Worldcon we have Emily from At This Arts, a small press who's publishing a novella set in the Sauútiverse. It's called Songs for the Shadows by Sherilyn Toomey, who's also editing the anthology. So that one's coming out, I believe, should be in the next month or two. We also have members of the collective working on novels, right, set in this shared world. So I know Eugene Bacon is working on a novel set in the Sauútiverse. Another member, Zan Van Rooyen, is also working on a novel set in the Sauútiverse. Eugene also has a collection that she is shopping around that contains a lot of stories set in the Sauútiverse. I have a novella set in the Sauútiverse that I just finished writing. I haven't sold anywhere. I'm kind of sitting on it for a little bit, but hopefully it will be published in a magazine or by a publisher somewhere. So there's a lot of stories coming out of this world, which, as I said, the whole process of creating and thinking of different ways of fitting things into the framework keeps generating story ideas. So almost every time we talk or have a meeting, there's new story ideas and people are constantly coming up with things to explain something, things to delve into aspects of the world that we've set up. So it's just constantly growing. So yeah, that's for the Sauútiverse. That's what's next. It's just a whole bunch of novellas, potentially novels, and this next anthology. For me personally, the main thing I'm working on right now is my second novel, which is nothing to do with Shigidi and the Brass Head of Obalufon. It's a novel I've been working on for a while. Okay. So I want to get it done because it's been sitting in my brain for so long. Yeah. And it's an idea I really like. It's a science fiction, kind of near-future science fiction thriller that's a bit of, like I said, like a science fiction thriller, but also a bit of a meditation on the nature of consciousness and memory and just connectedness. Because as you can tell, I like the idea of human connectedness, community, what makes us work, why we work together, how we work together efficiently. I'm a big believer that humans are built to work together. No matter what everybody says about, hyper-individualism and this, the one great individual theory, I don't believe in any of that. I believe humanity's greatest achievements come when we work together. And it might be a bit more difficult to get there. You will always have some friction between people, but when we get it aligned, it works best. And that's kind of what I want to explore with this next novel. So that's what I'm working on. Not sure when it will be out, but I need to finish it first. That's the important part. And as you know, that's not always easy. But I'm on track and I'm enjoying the process of writing it. In the meantime, I have short stories coming out. I have one short story coming out from Subterranean Press, who's putting it out as like a free ebook. which people will be able to get for free, because that's what you do with free ebooks. You get them for free. That one I quite like, so hopefully people will read it and enjoy it. It's set during World War II. It's kind of I would call it literary horror, which is, it's set during World War II and kind of explores the nature of war and colonization and what that means to someone on a very individual level, but also viewing colonization and war as a kind of monster. So it's a monster story, but also a story about one person confronting these horrors during World War II. It's called Unquiet on the Eastern Front.
Okay.
So it is a reference to All Quiet on the Western Front, which I also think it's a critique of war in itself, and I do lean into that quite a bit. So I'm hoping people enjoy that. I also have another short story coming out in an anthology from MIT Press, the 12 Tomorrows anthology. And that one's set 3 million years in the future, and it's about artificial intelligence and sentient planets and galactic computers, and it's one of the weirdest, trippiest cosmic sci-fi stuff I've ever written, and I love that story so much.
That sounds really fun. When does that anthology come out?
I think October.
Okay.
I think in October. It's available for pre-orders right now, so if people want to support it, it's edited by Indra Pramit Das, who is a great writer himself. That's what's coming from me.
Great. Well, thank you for your time.
No, thank you. This was awesome. It's always great talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you for talking to me again. While I loved hanging out with you, it was great to get to meet you. Hopefully we'll cross paths again at another con. So I had a publicist contact me and say that one of their tour's new writers was going to be at Worldcon and wanted to know if I wanted to talk to him. And his name is Sung-il Kim. Sung-il is from Seoul, and he's done a lot of role-playing and translation work. And his first book in the US, or in English, I should say, Blood of the Old Kings, which was previously published in South Korea. And he was a delight to talk to because it was a little intimidating because when we met at the tour party the day before we were going to do the interview, and he said when he found out that I was interviewing him, he ran out and read one of my books. And that was like, wow, that's diligent. And he wanted to talk to me about it. So that was very cool. I enjoyed talking to him, and I can't wait to see what else he comes up with. So let's talk to him. Again, audio's not the greatest, and I'm very sorry. And let's talk to him. Okay, I'm back at Worldcon, and I am here with Sung-il Kim, a new tour author and in translation. I get a chance to talk to him about his new book. Tell me about your new book first.
Okay, it's about a great empire having conquered the world, and it's slowly declining. But everybody in the conquered provinces, is suffering. And I have 3 protagonists who hail from one of those provinces. Each in their own unique circumstances have to deal with their lot under this imperialist situation.
How do you handle the 3 protagonists? Do they intersect?
Oh, 2 of them don't even meet.
Oh, okay.
But one of them meets with both of them, either of them. What's the word? Approximate way to say?
Both of them separately, or
separately.
Yeah. So you are you've written novels before, but this is your first English translation?
Yes.
Okay.
Is.
So how did that happen?
Well, I didn't have an agent for a very long time, and I've heard about this Green Book agency in Korea. Another author has recommended to me. And I talked to them, and they are big on films, TV shows, and translations. So they asked me to authorize them to market my Korean books. And it was going to take a while to translate the samples, so I just did it myself.
Okay.
And that somehow got Lynch's attention, the piece. About 3 chapters, I think.
That's great.
Yeah, and I really didn't expect anything to come out of it, but, well, it did.
Yeah.
And in 2 months, I'll be published in English.
That's great. Yeah, it's coming out in October. But you did not do the whole translation of your book.
No,
How did that work? Since you do speak English, but you decided not to do the translation?
Well, writing in a foreign language is a completely different proposition than reading it or just casually speaking it.
Yeah.
And I didn't pick the translator, but I really wanted Anton Her to do it. I think I suggested him, or you just picked him? You did. Okay.
Our silent third person here is editor Lindsay. So anyway, that's who we're asking.
And he was chosen, and I was happy with that choice. Mm-hmm. And well, he did a great job. And yeah, that's about it.
That's something that interests me, because I've had my books translated into other languages, but I don't speak any of the other languages, so I have no idea whether they did a good job or not.
Oh, right.
So how closely did you follow the translation as it was happening?
Oh, I got the first draft, and I went through the editing process with that draft. With Lindsay, and that was a very interesting experience, very exciting, because I have never worked in English before. Mm-hmm. But somehow I was able to with a lot of help. And yeah, that's how we got to the final draft.
That's great.
It took a couple of months.
Mm-hmm. One thing that interested me about your bio was that you started writing fiction a little bit later in life than most people, and I like that because I did too. Mm. And so, and I have a lot of listeners who are middle-aged and who are thinking it's too late. And I keep telling them it's never too late to do your first book. So I wanted to ask you about starting your fiction career in the period of life you are now.
Oh. Well, the first thing I did when I got the book offer from my first Korean publisher, well, the first thing I did was Google for editors who debuted past 40.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I forgot the names, but a lot of names, but P.D. James. She started out at 45 or something. And there are at least 2 prominent Korean writers who also started in their mid to late 40s. Mm-hmm. So while it is rare, I thought, well, why not me?
Exactly.
Yeah. And I never really, my lifestyle hasn't really changed since my early 20s. Mm-hmm. My day job is a tabletop role-playing games publisher. Mm-hmm. And every day, all day, I sit at my computer and sometimes I do my translations, I edit, or I do customer service. And yeah, I've been doing that for 30 years.
Wow.
So I don't really think of myself as in a different phase of life.
Okay.
I've been just doing everything that I have been doing.
That's great.
Yeah. And actually, writing something wasn't so physically different because I'm still sitting in front of my computer typing away. Although, well, what I'm doing is, of course, very different. But yeah, it was doable.
I started in RPGs as well.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, not developing my own, but I've written for other companies. And when I started doing fiction, it was interesting how when you write for RPGs, you have a structure within the world that you have to remain. Mm-hmm. And so how did it feel to start writing in your own world completely with anything you wanted to do? Was it freeing or was it scary or a third emotion?
Oh, it was freeing because, see, what I have, the most of my work, my previous and current, my role-playing games work, has been translating stuff. Mm-hmm. And I had written 2 books of my own, which I published, but they were all world books. They were for generic systems, GURPS and Fate Core.
Oh, yeah.
So I didn't really have much restrictions.
Oh, okay.
Because I was making up my own world, just using the rules. So I was familiar with world building, and that's so writing fiction was within my comfort zone, surprisingly.
Great. So one thing I'm noticing on a lot of books of authors I'm interviewing these days is people are getting very good with the first page hooks. Like, read the first page and make you want to keep reading. And yours is amazing. It's very much getting the hooks in and dragging you through the story. I guess I want to know, does that come naturally to you, or is that something you carefully structured, knowing you wanted to grab somebody? Well, let's see. Describe the first page to us. It's very it's awesome.
The first page begins with the first protagonist, Laurent, waking up in a volcanic cave, and the huge dragon with 7 eyes is pressing on her with a single very sharp claw as large as his thighs. And she squirms, and the dragon asks, Are you a princess of Ireland? And she says, I'm not, I'm a commoner. And the dragon asks again, don't you know that only those of royal blood can enter this chamber? And she says, our old royal house, so Ireland is an old country, and our royal blood has spread to a lot of commoners. So I figured that I had a little bit of that too. So she had jumped into a volcano in the hopes that she would meet the dragon, believing that she may have some sort of royal ancestry somewhere.
To keep her alive?
Yeah. So that's the title of the book, The Blood of All Kings. And the dragon tells her, scoffs, and tells her that even if you are a princess or a commoner, I can do nothing for you. I am in chains.
Yes.
And you run along home now.
Yes.
But she can't back away from this. So she tells the dragon that to make a new pact with her, like it had done with the old kings before, that she would be king, drive out the empire from this country, and free the dragon again. That's what she promises. And the dragon takes this seriously, and in exchange for taking one of her eyes.
Yep, that happened. It sure did happen. Yep.
And the dragon it breaks off its fang, fashions a sword out of it, and gives it to her. And she leaves the cave determined to become the king of Ireland again. That's the first chapter.
Yeah. That's just the first chapter. I'm always interested in asking authors why they decide to start the story where they do. I mean, yours is, you could have started when she decided to take the journey, or when she leapt into the volcano, or back in the day when when you could have done a prologue with, somebody keeping the dragon down. So yeah, it's you could have done a prologue about the last time the dragon dealt with the kings, but you decided on her back with a dragon claw on her chest, looking up at 7 eyes. Like what told you that was that was the place to start?
Well, at the first time, I have to start with how that chapter started. That chapter wasn't part of a novel when it was first written. It was a vignette for my role-playing game book.
Okay.
But it became the first chapter. When it became sure that I was going to write a novel out of it, it wasn't automatically the first chapter. I was writing about how she was climbing the mountain and how she hesitates in front of the mouth of the volcano. I had written all that. I showed it to my wife, and she said, cut all of that out.
Excellent.
And immediately I knew she was right, because in the beginning, when it first was a vignette, I had thought the same thing too. And when I was rewriting it for the novel, as the novel's first chapter, I thought that I had to take more time. But when I heard that take all of that out, yeah, that was right. That was the right thing. That was my first instinct when I had wrote that for as a vignette, and it should have been when I was writing a novel. I like starting with a bang. I like and somehow naturally making the exposition sound somewhat natural. Yeah, that's something I know how to do, and that is often my instinct, but there are things that interfere with my instincts, such as the fact that this was the first full-size novel that I was writing. But yeah, I often have to remind myself, and others remind me, to what a good opening is, or what a good character is, and also all the things. Yeah. So I think for me, not getting distracted was the most important thing, and not being distracted by my obligation of writing, let's say, 9,000 word novel. 90,000? 9,000? 90,000, yeah. Right? We don't count in words in Korean, so.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of okay. So, yeah, I couldn't help but feel the pressure of it. So that's what distracted me from going with my instincts. But the decision to start like that was instinctive.
Okay, that's great. With your RPG and your fiction background, what kind of advice do you give to people who are just starting out wanting to do fiction or create RPGs or something? Just, they're completely new and they want your sage advice.
Well, in both cases, the first thing I'd like to tell them is know your genre. You don't write something you know nothing about or little about.
Right.
Because I think the best thing a writer, or RPGs or in fiction, can do is give people stories that they didn't know they wanted.
I like that.
Yeah. In order to do that, you have to know the genre, but you have to get out of it too. You have to live and breathe the meta text, yet bring something new to it. And people fail in one of those two things. They either don't know the genre enough, or they don't think to get out of it.
Okay.
So that would be my first advice to new people trying to write in either. You have to bring something new, yet you have to know the rules.
Is there anything else you'd like to say to English-speaking audience about your new book?
I hope you stay up at night waiting for the next book to come out.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sung-il, and thank you, Tor, for giving us a copy that I can give away. I sometimes do giveaways on the live stream, and I sometimes do giveaways on the podcast. I try not to favor one over the other. How many copies do I have anyway? Oh, I have 2 copies. Okay, I have 2 copies to give away, and since this was not a live stream, I'm not going to give them away during the live stream. So if you are in the US, I'm sorry, my income cannot handle a lot of overseas giveaways. I wish I could, really. But if you're in the US and you're interested in Sung Il's book, then please email me and say giveaway in the title, and I'm going to make it easy on you. In the body of the email, just write, "Ow, my eyes." But thank you for listening to I Should Be Writing. If you'd like to ask me a question, my email address is mightymur@gmail.com. You can find my work, my books, my podcasts, everything I do over at murverse.com. While I'm delighted to be home for quite some time, since the August was very busy, my next travel will be to World Fantasy Con in Niagara Falls next month. Thanks for listening. Thank you for being patient with me. I know it's not easy. I want to give an extra special thank you to my 10-year supporters. I started Patreon in 2014, and I was looking to see, I knew one person, Dave Hoag, has been my longest supporting person via Patreon. And I looked to see who else started supporting me in 2014, and there were 31 of you. I can't believe it. I was just gobsmacked. I really was. And I'm trying to figure out what I can do to thank you, because it's just too amazing. But I'm going to start with thanking you in the podcast. So I want to say thank you to Stephen Hood, who's been supporting me for 10 years and 6 months. I don't know what to say besides thank you. I really hope that you've gotten a lot out of this podcast and the other stuff I do, because that's what the Patreon supports. If you want to support the Patreon so you can eventually be a 10-year supporter down the line, check out patreon.com/mightymur, where you'll get early episodes. You may get extended episodes. You'll get all sorts of weird stuff that I just make. Access to the Discord. We've got a great community. Check it out. And if you're more of a newsletter-like type person, you can go to mightymur.substack.com and support that way. I stream on Twitch. I'm trying to get my schedule back on because Twitch streaming also failed or, fell off the wagon. And so I need to get back into a schedule. But usually it's just I should be writing live Thursday afternoons, 3 o'clock Eastern time. And I may be solo. I may be with an interview. I managed to get this up before Thursday this week. By the way, today's date is September 25th, 2024. Then I urge you to come hang out with us in the Twitch channel this week, because I'm going to be talking to the amazing Kat Rambo. They've got a new book coming out. It came out yesterday. Oh gosh, that's tomorrow. Yeah, you probably won't hear this. You may hear this. I'm going to stop babbling now. Anyway, thank you guys. You Should Be Writing. Thank you for listening to I Should Be Writing, the longest running writing podcast in existence. This episode was made possible by the Fabulous, who support the podcast via Patreon or Substack. Join the Fabulous at patreon.com/mightymur or mightymur.substack.com. Theme music provided by John Anelio, art provided by Numbers Ninja, and podcast hosting provided by Libsyn. This episode is released under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 license. You can find all of my books and podcasts at murverse.com.